Why Sleep Changes Everything. Part 2 of the Body Transformation series. Hi, I'm Monica, and if you watched part 1 of this series, then you already know that changing your life often starts with changing your body. Not because appearance is everything, not because you need some perfect morning routine, but because your body is the vehicle through which you experience your entire life. And today I want to talk about something that may be even more important than exercise: supplements, productivity hacks, or motivation. Sleep. Because if part 1 was about creating energy, part 2 is about protecting it. And honestly, I don't think most people realize how much of their suffering is connected to poor sleep. They think they're lazy, unmotivated, burned out, anxious, emotionally unstable. But sometimes the real problem is much simpler. They're exhausted, and they've been exhausted for so long that they don't even remember what feeling truly rested is like anymore. I think this is one of the biggest hidden problems in modern life, because when you're tired every day, fatigue slowly becomes your normal. You stop comparing yourself to your best self. You start comparing yourself to yesterday's tired version of yourself. And eventually you begin believing that this low energy version is just who you are, but it isn't. Sometimes it's simply sleep. And I know this because I've gone through periods where I was convinced something was deeply wrong with me. My motivation disappeared. My patience disappeared. Even small tasks felt overwhelming. And then, after a period of sleeping better, suddenly everything looked different. The problems hadn't changed, but my ability to deal with them had. And that's when I started paying much more attention to sleep. Not as a luxury, not as a reward, but as a biological necessity. Because while you're sleeping, your body is doing some of its most important work. Your brain processes information, memories are organized, hormones are regulated, cells repair themselves. Your nervous system recovers from the stress of the day. In many ways, sleep is when your body performs its maintenance work. Imagine never servicing your car, never changing the oil, never fixing small issues. Eventually, something breaks. The human body works the same way. The difference is that many of us keep trying to function while running on empty. And then we wonder why life feels so difficult. One thing that surprised me when I started learning about sleep is how much it affects cravings. Have you ever noticed that after a bad night of sleep, suddenly everything sounds good? Sugar, chips, fast food, desserts, foods you normally wouldn't even think about. That's not a lack of willpower. Your body is trying to find energy wherever it can. And when you're sleep deprived, your brain often pushes you toward quick sources of calories, which means that sometimes people think they have a food problem when they actually have a sleep problem. And that leads to another interesting question. Have you ever fallen asleep on the couch effortlessly, but then walked into your bedroom and suddenly felt wide awake? I think most of us have experienced that at least once. You're watching a movie, your eyes get heavy, you can barely keep them open. Then you decide to be responsible and go to bed. And somehow you're awake again for the next hour or two. I used to find this incredibly frustrating. But over time, I realized something. Often it's not that our body isn't tired, it's that our mind becomes active again. We start thinking, planning, remembering conversations, worrying about tomorrow, creating imaginary scenarios. And suddenly our brain shifts from rest mode back into problem solving mode, which brings me to racing thoughts at night. If you've ever laid in bed replaying your entire life at 2 a.m., you're not alone. I think almost everyone has gone through periods like that. And the frustrating thing is that the harder you try to force sleep, the more awake you become. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop fighting. Instead of trying to force yourself to sleep, allow yourself to rest. Close your eyes, focus on your breathing, and remind yourself that resting is still beneficial even if sleep doesn't come immediately. I've found that reducing pressure often helps more than increasing it. Another thing I hear all the time is, I only sleep 4 or 5 hours and I'm fine. And maybe some people genuinely function well on less sleep, but most people don't. What often happens is that they've become adapted to being tired, not optimized, adapted. There's a huge difference. If you felt exhausted for years, it can become your baseline. You stop noticing it until one day you finally get consistent quality sleep and realize how much better you can actually feel. Now let's talk about insomnia, because I know some people listening are thinking, that's great, Monica, but I can't sleep. And if that's you, I genuinely understand how difficult that can be. Insomnia isn't simply being awake, it's often frustration, anxiety, watching the clock, calculating how many hours are left before morning, and becoming more stressed with every passing minute. One thing that helped me was removing unnecessary pressure from sleep. Instead of obsessing over getting perfect sleep every night, I focused on creating better conditions for sleep, because sleep cannot be forced. It can only be invited. And that brings me to something fascinating. Have you ever noticed how easily you sleep in a good hotel? I've always found this interesting. People often assume it's because they're on vacation, and sometimes that's true. But I think there are other reasons. Hotels are designed for sleep. The room is usually cool, the curtains block light, the mattress is comfortable, the bedding feels heavy and secure, the pillows support your neck, the environment is intentionally built to help your nervous system relax. And then we go home and try to sleep in a room that's too warm, too bright, too noisy, and wonder why the experience feels different. One of the easiest changes many people can make is paying attention to room temperature. Most people sleep better in a cooler room than they expect. Not freezing, just cool enough that the body can naturally regulate temperature during the night. The mattress matters. The pillow matters. If your neck hurts every morning, your body is giving you information. Listen to it. And then there's something I didn't appreciate until later: weighted blankets. Some people absolutely love them, others don't. But for many people, the gentle pressure creates a feeling of safety and calm, almost like being wrapped in a comforting hug. For some nervous systems, that can make a surprisingly big difference. Let's also talk about noise, because many of us underestimate how much sound affects sleep. A ticking clock, a television left on, traffic, notifications, random sounds that seem small during the day. At night, your brain notices everything. If possible, remove unnecessary noise. Even something as simple as replacing a loud ticking clock with a silent one can help create a calmer sleep environment. Now, let's talk about two things that often sabotage sleep: caffeine and alcohol. I love coffee, many people do, but caffeine stays in the body much longer than people realize. Sometimes the afternoon coffee is still affecting your sleep hours later. And alcohol can be even more deceptive, because alcohol often helps people fall asleep. But falling asleep isn't the same as sleeping well. Many people wake up more frequently, get poorer quality sleep, and feel less rested the next day, which means that what feels relaxing at night may actually be making recovery harder. I also want to briefly mention migraines and headaches, because poor sleep and headaches often create a frustrating cycle. Bad sleep can contribute to headaches. Headaches can make sleep harder. And the cycle repeats. If migraines or frequent headaches are part of your life, sleep quality becomes even more important. And if you've been feeling exhausted for a long time despite sleeping enough hours, please don't assume it's always a motivation problem. Sometimes it's worth checking your health. A simple blood test can reveal issues that affect energy dramatically. Vitamin D, ferritin, vitamin B12, thyroid function, these aren't exciting topics, But sometimes the answer isn't hidden in a motivational video. Sometimes it's hidden in a blood test, and honestly, I wish more people talked about that because there's no shame in needing medical support and there's no prize for suffering unnecessarily. So, before I finish, I want to give you a simple experiment. Not for life, not forever, just 14 days. For the next 2 weeks, go to bed at roughly the same time. Wake up at roughly the same time. Keep your room cool, reduce unnecessary noise, limit caffeine later in the day, avoid alcohol close to bedtime, and prioritize sleep as if it's one of the most important investments you can make in yourself. Then pay attention, not just to your sleep, but to your mood, your energy, your cravings, your patience, your focus, the way you respond to stress. You may be surprised by how many parts of life improve when sleep improves, because sleep isn't just about rest, it's about recovery, it's about healing, it's about giving your body the opportunity to become the version of itself it's trying to be. And if part one of this series was about changing your life through your body, then part two is about understanding that sleep is the foundation that makes everything else possible. Before I go, if you'd like to support the channel and help me continue creating new videos, you can visit my Etsy shop or my Buy Me a Coffee page. Thank you for your kindness and support. It truly means a lot. And if this video helped you, consider subscribing and joining us for the next part of this series. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.